Welcome to episode 15 of the Lily List podcast, where our goal is to be a handbook for the living. We sat down with Chris Pappalardo and explored the powerful journey of a man who has reinvented himself time and time again. From his early days growing up in a challenging family environment, to his pursuit of music and later his successful career in real estate, Chris shares how his life experiences, both personal and professional, have shaped his outlook on life and legacy. We discuss his marriages, the lessons he learned from love and loss, and how those relationships influenced his career choices and personal growth. Whether reflecting on the highs and lows of his music career or rebuilding after bankruptcy, Chris opens up honestly about resilience, the importance of family, and his ongoing mission to leave meaningful legacy for his son and others. This episode is full of heartfelt insights on balancing ambition, relationships, and the lessons life teaches along the way. As always, visit lilylist.com for more information on the podcast and platform. You can also contact us from the website if you have questions or ideas for people or topics you'd like to see us cover. To support the work of Lily List, please donate using the links below. And if you find these conversations meaningful, please follow, share, like, and or subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. Chris Pappalardo, welcome to Lily List Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining. We've known each other for a while, so some of the things I will ask you, I probably already know the answer to, but I'm sure there'll be things that I don't know the answer to. And people listening, of course, some of them probably know you and some of them don't. But I think you've led a pretty interesting life, and I wanted to make sure that I talked with you because one of the big things that I'm trying to do is capture stories and show people that they can capture their story, that every story is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the goal. And where I like to start is with childhood. So, And what was your childhood like?
Well, first, friggin' awesome to be here and honored that you wanted to talk to me. And again, I love that you're continue to grow and change, and I'm excited to see where this goes. Childhood, I grew up in Richmond, Virginia. Let's see, what was my childhood like? My parents were Catholic, and so my childhood, I didn't know at the time, was a very stressful environment, even though on paper we lived in an upper middle class neighborhood in Richmond, Virginia, but we were living beyond our means. I was just a kid, but my parents got married at 19 and 20, and my dad was the first one in his family, Italian family, to go to college. He went to UVA. My mom was an only child, and they got pregnant his sophomore year in college. So both sides of the family. My mom's side felt like my dad ruined her life, and then my dad's felt like he was the golden child. And so they got derailed because they, got married instantly. And so neither of my grandparents were happy. Again, everybody was trying to make the best of it. So my parents being, kids raising kids, they were a good team, but they weren't friends. Yep. And they didn't have the same interests. They didn't have the same stuff. My dad was undiagnosed bipolar and narcissistic. And so there was all this tension that I just didn't understand at the time because I'm older. We didn't know it, but I'm textbook ADD. So I was that kid they kept saying my whole life, if I would just buckle down, if I would just focus, if I just harness my energy, I had all this talent and, I was really smart, but I could never really pull it together. And I always seemed very, very serious. And now I can label it was I was just trying to focus. It took all my energy just to focus because I was very, very hyper. But I was very athletic. I was very musically into music. Even as a little kid, I wrote songs and I sang and, very musical. My dad and mom, again, they did better than their parents, but they thought that their job was to coexist with us and provide an environment for us to be. And so we went to a great school, upper middle class neighborhood. I never wanted for anything. I played baseball, basketball. Like I had the latest video games and I had nice clothes, but they never spent time with us. Like my dad never threw ball with me or that kind of stuff. His job was to provide and sit on the couch and watch TV She was frugal. There was always stress there. And then we had a lot of illness as a childhood. My grandmother was actually one of the first people to get bypass surgery at MCV. And then my mom was sick because of stress, as we know. So on paper, like I had the best childhood ever. You know, like I always had, God, my dad would always buy an insane number of Christmas presents. Like the tree, you couldn't even get near it. But we were always afraid because we knew January was going to come and he's going to freak out because we'd never live up to that expectation of whatever he gave us. So it's always just kind of this weird contingent stuff. Then my brother, as a kid, and again, I thought it was normal. I didn't know. He was the oldest. So in an Italian family, the oldest son, it's like the Godfather, like they're everything. And the second son is kind of like, you know, really nothing. And that was really true in our family. And I didn't know why, but I always wanted whatever my brother had, or I wanted to be treated equal. And I didn't know what it was as a kid. So I had that going on. But also my brother was ironically, a bit evil. He would actually get off on hiding places in the house and scare the crap out of me. I remember being like 4 or 5 or 6 years old, and I'd lay in bed, and I put myself to bed. It was weird. Like, go to bed. So I go to bed. But he'd lay under my bed or lay somewhere in the room for a half an hour, and just slowly make sounds. And like he was just methodical about it.
Wow.
And I never told my parents whatever. He's my older brother, you know. But then he just always, so I was like afraid of the dark and that kind of stuff. And of course, later I realized that was not okay, right? That was just later on. But again, on paper, I got really, really good grades, never studied until I got to junior high school when you actually had to buckle down and study. And then I was a C student from then on because I just couldn't do homework and couldn't read. But I was got A's and B's, decently athletic. But I was also really, really small for my age. I didn't grow till my junior year in high school. So I loved football. I loved hitting people, and they wouldn't let me play it. So I switched over to soccer, and that was one of my regrets because I loved football and I loved hitting people. I played fullback and middle linebackers. I didn't even want the ball. I just wanted to hit people. Even though I was little, I could rack them up. So I didn't really want for much, but just you always felt this tension over money. We always lived way beyond our means in this really nice house. But like we were that family that like we had a really nice house, but we used a wood stove and we wouldn't turn the heat on. It was just a weird kind of combination. You know, and so, you know, I did get some really good foundational things. And then, you know, the other thing that my dad, you know, was half right was, you know, he would talk about like, you know, make sure you work hard so that you have options, you know, that you have options in life, that you can achieve anything you want if you work hard enough. I mean, I was cutting grass at 11 or 12 years old. I had a paper route. He instilled the entrepreneurial spirit in me. Like I wanted a Labrador Retriever puppy. He loaned me the money at like 10 years old. And then we got our lab and then we bred her and I paid him back. And so like from a young age, maybe too much thinking about money, but he had me thinking about making a living and saving my money and saving for a car when I was 16. And, you know, I started working young, and I think maybe that was because he had to hustle at 19 instead of getting his college degree at UVA. You know, he had to hustle. So he just wanted to make sure that we were hustling or whatever. But there was definitely some positives. But again, compared to most, man, God, I had it easy.
You went to college. Did you go away to college? Did you move out of your house, or were you at home going to college?
Yeah. So I ended up going to college in the same hometown that I grew up in, but I moved out. I found guitar. I picked up a guitar when I was 17. And instantly fell in love with it, knew that's what I wanted to do. And so a year later, when I graduated high school, so I went to high school in downtown Richmond at a Catholic military all-boys school. And as luck would have it, the best music school in the state was in my hometown, like 12 blocks from where I went to high school.
Wow.
However, my parents were divorced, and it was time. I mean, I learned my independence. So when I graduated high school in May, in June, I moved into the Fan downtown, and I never went back. And even though I was just blocks from my high school, it was like a different world because I was on my own apartment, my own world. I got my own roommate, and you know, I went to music school for 4 years and got a degree in music that my parents did not want me to get, and they were not on board with, and so they weren't offering to help. And I was like, I don't need your help.
Yeah.
And it went to VCU. And, you know, never lived on campus or that. I was just always lived in an apartment or a house. And I never had that like college life because we didn't have a football team. stuff like that. So I had a cool college experience, but it wasn't like the go away to school. It was like, no, I'm just blocks from my high school. And we didn't tailgate or anything like that. There was none of that. And then I didn't have a dorm room. I just always had a apartment or house.
I was going to ask, so with ADD in college and being on your own, you had to sort of create structure for yourself. Were you able to just kind of adapt on your own, or were there challenges you ran into to be able to kind of complete your degree and support yourself and all of those things?
So it was weird. So again, my brother, when I was 14 or 15, gave me marijuana, and for the first time. And again, we didn't know at the time. But like I smoked that and I was like, oh my God, I can read. I can focus. Right? It was weird. So when I got straight A's in college, I actually was doing the most drugs I'd ever done in my life. I didn't know what was going on. I was just smoking pot. And I would smoke pot and then be able to sit and practice or read or write. It was able to help me hyper-focus. I didn't know why. And I actually thought I was actually like getting high because I just had this brain that had, 1,000,001 thoughts. And all of a sudden it was like, ooh, I can focus on 3 or 4. So I ended up getting the nickname Pops because I was like, I'll drive. So I drove everybody everywhere they wanted to go. And I drove to concerts because I was like, I'm getting sober, but I didn't know it.
Yeah.
I was like, why can I focus and be wide awake and blah, blah, blah. And so unbeknownst to me, that's what was going on. But then maybe junior year or senior year in college, I'm also a rule follower. And the fact that at the time it wasn't legal, I started getting a little paranoid about it. And I just didn't want to have that crutch, whatever. I was never a person that wanted crutches. So I really kind of weaned off of it. And my grades suffered. They really did. And my focus suffered. But I was trying to balance, my morals and those kind of things. But at that point, I had a solid band and fairly solid routine of, what I was doing and things. And also, I was around a bunch of people that when they were getting high, they were actually getting high.
Yeah.
So they were, I was like starting to worry about people doing crazy stuff. And then because when you're not high and you're seeing that, you're like, whoa, that's not smart a lot of times. But, really good time overall. But yeah, I ended up getting out and ended up with really good grades and got an education and music major. It was, I learned about, and then I really just kind of dropped off all of that when I graduated. I had no idea at that time what was going on or why.
So I know a bit about some of your music experience past college, but I don't know the sort of, what did that path look like? So for instance, I know that you were doing some work in Nashville with some well-known folks, but was that directly after college, or what, you get out of college, what did that look like to get to where you were?
So I had a band called the Yeomen in college, and we ended up living together, all of us. We were a power trio. And then as I was graduating college, we're 21, 22, and it started looking like it was falling apart. I was very driven to succeed and serious, and they just wanted to hang out and party and play music. And God, great guys, man. Jesus, still friends with them today. And but we were on different paths. I was really working hard at getting great at being a guitar player and a musician. They just wanted to party and have a good time. So we broke up right when I was graduating college. And then I was waiting tables. And then I met a couple other guys, and we instantly started another band called Beluga Whale. And one of the guys in that band, a guy named Jim Ellis, I later went on to play in a duo called Waterline for years. And but we started having success, and we were playing a lot of fraternities, and actually we were making a lot of money. And I was trying to figure out what to do next. I was teaching guitar lessons. I didn't want to be a band director in school, just kind of a little lost. And we got a huge following really, really quick from VCU and from the University of Richmond. And we were getting a little cocky. We'd signed with an agency, and we were starting to tour a lot of colleges. We were a jam band, and we were in Richmond, Virginia, and we had this house gig at the Flood Zone, which is downtown, and the owner of the Flood Zone was a guy named Corin Capshaw, and he happened to be managing this brand new band that he wanted to season. So he had this brand new band come down and open for us, and it was the Dave Matthews Band.
Oh, wow.
Carter and Tim Reynolds wasn't in the band. They actually had a keyboard player when they first started. I've been watching these guys play in this band called Secrets. Tim Reynolds and Carter, the drummer, used to play this little place called Stonewall Cafe, and I just sit there and watch these guys like for free. On Tuesday nights played at 8 people because it was fusion and jazz. Anyway, so they came and opened up for us, and I remember standing on the soundboard and I was like, oh my God, there it is. Like instantly, like X Factor, there it is. And I instantly knew like, crap, that band has the X Factor. We don't. We're going to be 10 years down the road touring, probably making good money, but we're not that. And that's what I want. Around that same time, I'd heard about this school called MTSU down in Tennessee, near Nashville and Murfreesboro, where because nobody in Virginia had a recording industry management program, you can go get in-state tuition. And so it was like $1,000 a semester, and you got 40 hours of studio time.
Wow.
Right? And they guaranteed you an internship in Nashville for the last 6 months. And I was like, what? Right? So at 22 years old, in like May, whatever that year was, when after I graduated, I told the band I was leaving for Nashville. I went down and I signed up to get my second degree at MTSU. And I was 22 years old, then I lived with 18-year-olds in a dorm room, which was interesting. And went down there, no job, no nothing, all my stuff in my little wagon. I wanted to be Dave Matthews or have the X Factor, Went to MTSU and got a job waiting tables and went back to being poor. And that was hard. All my friends, Jim, everybody was getting jobs and buying cars and starting to grow their lives and getting married. And I'm like, living with 18-year-olds. But I got all this studio time and all these great players. And I learned all the equipment and just how shit worked. God, I played with some great players. And then like a year and a half in, like 6 weeks before graduation, I got a chance to tour with, I met the manager for this guy named Sonny Landreth, and he was doing a buddy guide tour. Met my counselor, and I said, look, I'm 6 weeks from graduation. Do I go on this West Coast tour and be the guitar tech for, Buddy Guy and Sonny Landreth? And he said, did you come here to get a degree? Or did you come here to get in the industry? So I jumped in and I did that, and then ended up touring with Sonny. He ended up having a semi-hit. So I was on the road with him for 2.5 years. Played with great players like Little Feat and Fleetwood Mac. And I was doing guitar tech, and then I was engineering, and then I was running the tour. But I still wasn't playing much. And then my bandmate Jim from Beluga Whale called and said, God, I screwed up. I hate it. I'm a banker. I freaking hate it. So after 3 years in Nashville, maybe 4 years, I can't remember, dropped everything and moved to Wilmington, North Carolina. And he and I started a duo called Waterline. And we did that to get good because we knew we had to get good and then go back to Nashville. And Brooks and Dunn were aging out at that time. So we went and lived on nothing in Wilmington for 3 years, getting really good. I switched over to acoustic guitar. We were a duo, piano, guitar duo, and vocals. Built up a following called Waterheads and had a lot of success there. Not financial, but just toured the coastal regions. And then we started getting interest in Nashville. And that was when Jim had gotten married and he was about to have a son. And he was like, dude, I can't go back to Nashville. I moved by myself back to Nashville because I was tired of being poor in Wilmington. Got back to Nashville because I wanted to make it. I gave it another shot. And I maybe made one phone call and had offers to go back out on the road, which was nice. And there were offers to play, to tour manage, which was nice. Yeah. That means I had a good name in the industry. And then I did that for a little bit. And then it hit me like a ton of bricks. I learned one of my biggest lessons in life. I was playing a gig. At the time, it was called Fanfare. I don't know what it's called now. It was like probably 125,000 people in Nashville. And I'm playing with a guy named Leroy Parnell. And we were playing Fanfare, and Alan Jackson and Clint Black and all these guys were on the same label. So that's the stage we're sharing with those guys. And we're leaving there and we're driving over to play the Grand Ole Opry that night. And I'm standing on that stage playing, looking out. And when I originally went to Nashville, I said, I want to make it. I want to play with great players, see the world, and make a great living. And I'd achieved all that. I'd done it. Like I'd made it. Yet I wasn't fulfilled. I'm standing on the stage, right? And I'm like, what is wrong? Like, why am I am playing with amazing people. My phone rings for gigs and stuff like that. And like, what is wrong? Like, I can't get any better than this. I mean, I'm in a tour bus. I'm, a Hilton on wheels, and, I'm not in a freaking van. Like, so I'm like, we're living right. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, oh, I forgot one important word. See, I forgot the word my. And what I realized was what I really wanted was I wanted to go to Nashville. I wanted to see the world, play with great players, and play my music. I realized that I got more joy and fulfillment out of playing to 200 or 300 people in Wilmington or at the Dock House in Beaufort or wherever, playing my music, than I did making 3 times as much money playing in front of 120,000 people or 100 people, 1,000 people or 50,000 people or 10,000 people playing somebody else's stuff, even as good as it was. But I also knew I couldn't complain because I got exactly what I asked for.
Yeah.
So I remember unplugging my guitar from that, and I was married at the time. And I walked backstage and said, I'm done. I missed it. I got what I asked for. Time to move on. And at backstage at the Opry that night, I told Leroy I was giving my 2 weeks notice. And I was like, nope. And when I was in Wilmington, I always worked 2 jobs. I worked in a music store and like band orchestra instruments and PAs and stuff like that. And he had actually called and said, I've got a opening for a guy to take over a store in Asheville, North Carolina. And I told my then wife, I was like, I'm done. Let's move on. So we packed up and moved to Asheville, North Carolina. I started running a music store there. And then I went back, and Jim and I still played for a lot of years. We ended up putting out 2 CDs with Waterline and then 1 solo, just me acoustic guitar, just engineering everything, songs I wrote. And that was kind of that.
What was that experience, that time of your life, focusing on the music aspect? What's your biggest takeaway from that?
It's not a good one, really. Talent has nothing to do with success. I can't tell you how many people I met that I see on TV now, or I've seen really big shows that I will not name names that are not very talented.
Yeah.
Success and talent are not related. The second thing I learned, which was really funny, is even an asshole can write a great song.
Yeah.
Success isn't just for people who are really good people. But there's good people that made it too, but that wasn't a factor. I played with so many amazing people, and I saw so many incredible artists not make it. You just got to do it for you and let that fall where it falls.
Yeah. So I've got a few areas I want to cover with you, and I'm trying to think through what makes the most sense. But it sounds to me like your music partner, where you were doing Waterline, like that was something, there was some back and forth multiple times there on that project. And you mentioned being married when you were in Nashville and then going back to North Carolina to do this music store. I also know when you and I met, you were married to your second wife at that point. That time of your life, going from being married to not being married to playing music to meeting someone else you ended up being married to. How did all that weave together? So
one of the things that was addictive was that for Waterline, for Jim and I, we never made a set list. We always were intuitive when we jumped on stage to play, and we would just get in a groove, and we jammed a lot through songs. We just kind of made everything our own. And we had a lot of originals. We also played a lot of really unique covers and stuff like that. So our job was to sell alcohol, right? Or keep places full. But we also wanted to enjoy playing. So that relationship really was the primary relationship with which I was making decisions on, because it was so addictive and powerful to have somebody that, you know, and I got to play a lead guitar, slide guitar, acoustic. We had great harmonies, and it was just such a mind meld and such a dance. You know how that goes. It's great. And then when you get the audience into it, even more fun. So again, I was very ADD. So I did the textbook thing, which is I married the demonstrative 3rd grade teacher. I married somebody that would keep me on track, take care of the details, handle the day-to-day, because I was just all over the place. And she, again, back to like on paper, whatever, like wanted to support that and loved my musical ability. But she was also very concrete and very detailed and very specific. So I drove her nuts, right? And, you know, in hindsight, you know, I really drove that poor woman, I mean, crazy with how all over the place I was. But musically, that worked.
Yeah.
Worked really, really well, right? Like just get to the freaking gig, right? And then my brain would just lock in on music and everything else would disappear. And nothing like that happened, right?
Yeah.
But it did when we jumped on stage. I mean, plug in and go. And all of a sudden it's like, see you in 5 hours or 4 hours or 3 hours, like, see you later. It was amazing. So, but what happened was my mom gave me a book and she didn't tell me anything. She just said, read this book, check it out. It might make sense to you. And she gave me a book called Driven in Distraction. And I was like reading it. I was like, oh my God, this is me. So I got on my first ADD medicine. And it was like, the way I describe it is, for people who can't see or have to wear glasses, right? When they have their glasses on, they look outside and they don't see individual leaves. They see just like blobs of green.
Well,
right.
Yeah.
So imagine without ADD, it was like without glasses, there's all these thoughts and just called a big glob. But once I got on ADD medicine, it was like it became individual leaves or individual thoughts. I was like, holy crap, I can actually focus a little bit on some of these, right? Well, once I started doing that and I could read and I could get control of my mindset, I dug deep into that. And as I started to grow, my first wife did not want to grow with me.
Yep.
And that was very difficult because I was changing. So all of a sudden, I was trying to get her on board because my mindset was different. My mind changed. Like, it became even more contentious and more troublesome because, she married person A and I was becoming person B. And I was very emphatic with her about that. We just did not want to go on that ride. And we went as far as we could. I was running music stores and getting out of debt and growing businesses. I'd moved to Virginia Beach and I had to really late. I owned part of a music store and it was doing well, but I hated the work and sold that business and moved back to the coast on Topsail Island near Jim so we could give Waterline one more shot. And using all of our connections, we put out a really great CD, that sold hundreds of copies, hundreds. Then at that time, my wife was unhappy. She wanted to move back to Nashville. Frankly, she became an alcoholic during all this time and I couldn't get her to stop. So she later died from drinking, which sucked. But we had been divorced first. So I'd also started another company with another friend. I'd gone back to music actually just to make a living, ironically, because the world collapsed in 2008. And so I went back to all these old gigs I had and I was just playing all the time just to eat. And then at one of the gigs up at my favorite place in the Dock House is when I met my second wife, Amy. And it was the first time I didn't feel like broken. Like she seemed to like everything who I was. And then, supported music, supported me. And then I played music as a way to eat till I figured out what I wanted to do next. And that was when, I decided to get into real estate full time after we got married because I was bankrupt and I had to reinvent myself from 2008 and my divorce. And then I used music just as a vehicle to eat. And then I put out a solo CD and then I kind of hung it up. I played a little bit like charities and things of that nature. And I played a lot for our son and I wrote some songs for him. In fact, many people kept asking me to come out and play. And I had such an amazing experience with Jim and we had this mind meld. And I wouldn't say it felt like cheating on him. It wasn't cheating. It just, when you can just plug in and go and not have to think about it and just do it. And then my hands couldn't do what my mind wanted it to do. It almost became like more frustrating than enjoyable. But I've always been a guy that had two sides. I was always very musical, but I was also very business oriented. I always grew businesses. And every time I went on tour, I ended up running the tours or I wanted security. And at that point, and plus I'd been on tour. I'd seen a lot of the world and music just seemed to kind of run its course for me, I guess.
But that's a good pivot point because that was the next topic I wanted to sort of tie off music. And I think that for both of us, you and I were talking about this before we started recording. I remember when you first started and you were still having challenges on the ADD side. And when you started real estate, it was things like you got to stand here and cold call for 4 hours. And you're also married to Amy at this point. So you had some support on that front to move forward. But what's that journey been like for you over, I can't even say, 10 years?
14, dude.
14, wow.
14.
Okay.
Yeah, 14 like last week.
Wow.
Yeah, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So it was interesting. It was like I used everything I've learned from music to businesses I've owned to things I've grown, like all of it in real estate, all of it, like all of it. I mean, everything. Even I played music for the first couple years. I didn't know it, but that helped get my name out there because I played this place called Flip Flops. And, I'm like, but the journey for real estate has been, so I got in when the market was going backwards. So my office, so I thought, like stock, like get in low, buy low, sell high. And I had no idea the market was still going to go backwards for another 3 years. So it was really, really hard. Because like, for example, my office, when I got into real estate in September 2010, there's 149 agents in my office. And then by January 1, 2013, we had 67.
Wow.
But my business grew every year.
Yep.
Just by sheer determination and gut. And when I went bankrupt in 2008, I was pretty cocky at that time because, I would say like, oh, I'll just sell more because I was selling pianos but when the market collapsed, that did not work. And in 2010, when 40% of people were upside down in their houses, that did not work. It didn't matter how many hours I put in, there weren't very many houses being sold. Yeah. So it was very humbling in a good way. The good news was I had a model and a system that I followed, and I stuck with it. And slowly over time, again, putting other people's needs above mine, which is what I love most, and being their fiduciary and not being a salesperson, just being a consultant, which is what I've always done my whole life, which I didn't realize, started to breed success because I was very trustworthy. And, I take a lot of pride in talking people out of selling their house or, I remember having lunch with you and Serena once, and some guy needed directions somewhere or whatever. And I went out of my way to help him. And we always say, like, nobody wants to help you more than we do. And I don't care if it's renting or whatever. Everybody on my team, the deal is you leave that person better than you found them, period, no matter what. And that's our philosophy. Forget the money. Just leave people better than you found them. Yep. And over time, that has really served us well, ADD or not, or, market changes, whatever. Just help people, and let the chips fall where they fall. And, I've learned a lot with leverage. And then I really was able to lean into my strengths and weaknesses. And then I took this class called Bold, which was all about mindset. And, all you can control is your mindset and your actions. And it really helped me focus, and I became a coach. So, it's been really a big game changer for me as a human being, not as much for a business person, just being able to harness and use the tools at my disposal. Because, we can't control anything but our actions, our mindset. We can't control what other people do, whatever. And because, shit happens. And over the course of 14 years, really am proud of who I've helped, how I've helped, how many people I've left better. And it's not the dollars, it's not the dollars and cents. I've definitely chose people over profits. But as we talked about, I can sleep at night, and there's people that have been much more financially successful per se. But man, I've just, I've got just so many great memories of people that we've helped or I've helped and continue to help. And that's just more important to me than anything. So my industry is constantly changing every 18 months. It's bittersweet, but on the other hand, that's one of the benefits of my ADD is I get bored quickly. Yep. So one of the benefits is we have to tear things down and rebuild them every 18 months anyway. And I'm good at that. And I'm not afraid of that. So a lot of people get stuck in a certain way of doing things. And I've used it to my advantage to, just constantly evolve. So we don't get bored usually. Now, the downside is we live in an Amazon Prime world where everybody wants everything now. Yep. So in my industry, the challenge is, you have to be available or you have to have technology available pretty much 18 hours a day, every day, or you're giving bad customer service. And that's one of the challenges we have in our industry because, again, I'm like everybody else. I want to push a button and get an answer. And with real estate, that takes people. Yep. That's the current challenge is how to keep up with customer service and consulting, not salespeople in a world that's 24/7. People want, on-demand information. So that's the current challenge that's kind of burning me out a little bit. because it's just hard to give that level of service 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, and have a life. However, we're working on it. Well, I'm not sure if I answered the question, but
no, that's good. I was curious, it's again, entrepreneurial spirit, entrepreneurial drive. You've had, as have I, a number of failures, some successes. Somebody entrepreneurial like us, whether real estate or not, doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
Business is business. I don't want to call it advice, but based on your experience, what would you say to them when they want to start something up? What's going to help them be successful versus not successful?
look for, so people have come before you. So I'd say look for either models, systems that you can follow, or at least start with a premise, and find mentors or people that have done similar things that you're looking to do and follow them. Even if you can't get a hold of them through books or whatever, or try and reach out to them. You'll also be shocked at how many people that you think are beyond you that if you just reach out and ask, they are dying or happy to help. I'm one of them. In my office, I tell all the new agents, I'm back in this left corner. If you have any questions, come see me. I want to help you, not go through what I went through.
Yep.
And they never ask. And I'm like, so don't be afraid of that. And then something I actually learned from you is sometimes the most innovative thing you can do is just take something else that's proven in another industry and adapt it to this, whatever industry you're in. A couple examples, the ballpoint pen,
Yep.
right? Well, silly, somebody took that technology and put it in a roll-on deodorant,
Yep.
right? They took that industry, ballpoint pen, been around forever, and put it in deodorant. We on our team recently took the doctor on-call approach.
Yep.
Like doctors, they're not on, but people need a doctor 24 hours a day, right? So somebody's got to be on call. So our team took that philosophy, and now we have an on-call agent on the weekends. So one agent is on call 1 weekend a month, not every weekend, right?
Yep.
And we've got a trusted agent on our team that can handle anybody's questions. So now we're all rested, or we get a life, but we're also answering that question. So we brought something from that industry to our industry, and it seems innovative as all get out, but it's not.
Yeah.
Find systems or models from either industries or this industry that you can use or follow, at least as a guideline, like a skeleton. Find somebody that you trust, whether you know them or not, or you just admire them from afar, and use them as a mentoring example. And then, and then last is find a mastermind group that you trust, that you can run things by people. We call it ribs, run it by somebody.
Yep.
The only people that don't succeed are the ones who quit.
Yep. Because
every successful entrepreneur, the one thing they have in common, like the only common thread that I know of that exists in all of them, is that they've simply failed more than anybody else. Failed more.
Yep.
Because it's from the failures, which is where you learn. And as long as you don't quit, we joke, but like fail fast, fail often, because then you'll fail forward. And I think most people, they want to get ready to get ready to get ready. And in reality, you got to just go start doing and getting outcomes and then tweak along the way, and people who are entrepreneurs, they don't want to do that. They want to have the perfect website and the perfect business card and the perfect flyer. And I'm like, man, nobody cares.
Yeah.
Example I use is when Neil Armstrong and they were landing on the moon for the first time, 9% of the way down, they were off course. They were constantly adjusting as they were trying to land. They were going to crash, right? But they landed safely because they just kept adjusting, because they knew where they were. They knew what the goal was, right? And entrepreneurs don't think that way. They think they've got to have it perfect. And it'll never be the way you thought it was. Yeah. Ever. So as long as you have a model or a system to follow, or you have a mentor, those people and people to run it by, just keep going. Don't stop and learn. And then the last thing I'll say is, all that's well and good, but you have to have future oxygen, aka enough money to be able to do it. So, either you got to keep your day gig or something going, or have enough money and just live on less until it can become fruitful. Because you got to have future oxygen, aka enough cash to see it through. And it's always going to take more than you think. But on the other hand, it can be rewarding. And remember that everybody's going to tell you can't do it because they haven't done it or they can't see it. And every great success story is described as nobody thinks it'll work.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, actually, because I saw your journey in real estate from the very beginning, even you passing the real estate exam. How many years was it before? Because I remember things were really tight for you guys for a while. How many years was it before you finally felt like, I'm not going to say you made it, but to where you could say, hey, we can spend a little extra money on something?
Wow. 7 years, man.
Wow.
7 years. So I was bankrupt. So Amy put my first year of real estate on her credit cards because I was bankrupt. So she married me bankrupt and she put $21,800 my first year. So I had 1 year to make it work. And I sold 7 houses that year. And if you looked at my hourly rate, I would have made more money saying somebody was like fries with that than I would have in real estate. I was rookie of the year. Like I was the benchmark. I sold 7 and our average price point was like $110,000, something like that. So you do 3% of $110,000 plus expenses. Like I didn't make much. But the second year I sold 38 and I had a lot of debt and we did a lot of things wrong. I started a team. I didn't follow the model when I started a team. I thought I was better than the model. Got that wrong. And then we had our son, Miles. So Amy was a full-time mom and I had to be single earner, right? I think it was 2017 when we moved out of the neighborhood where we moved to our next house, which was terrifying, right? Because it was like twice the price of the house that we lived in here. Our foyer was our son's playroom. That's not really good for a 5-year-old. Even then I was still terrified, but yet I had enough coming in referral based, I couldn't keep up. And I really couldn't keep up from 2015 on. I was so paranoid about going bankrupt again and everything. I remember actually, Kurt, I remember you looking at me like, dude, you can't keep up this pace. Like, Chris, you cannot keep up this pace. And I was like, dude, I've got to get, out of debt. And by 2017, we were, out of debt and we had savings. We finally had like savings. And so the tension was there, but I was finally at a point where, okay, like I've got enough to where if the world completely shifted or changed, we're okay. Like we can live for 6 months to 9 months and I can reinvent myself or whatever. And we could move to a new house. And, but yeah, so it's like 7 years of that.
So usually what I do is I shift now, chat about where you are, where you're going. Mm-hmm. I know you've had a big change in your personal life. You're still doing your business. You've got a bunch of other things going on, but where are you today and what's going on and what are you trying to sort out at this point? You got your business going, but what is it with you that you're trying to sort out?
So kind of bizarre. 2024 is not exactly worked out the way I planned back to, like, you never know what's going to happen in life. I thought that I would be married to Amy forever. I thought I hit a home run there and I found my soulmate. And oddly, on January 28th of 2024, she decided like, yep, I got to move forward with this other world. And then 3 days later, on January 31st, my stepdad suddenly died.
Wow.
And he was the caregiver of my mom. So instantly, I was the caregiver of my mom in Richmond, Virginia. With all that going on, I started taking care of my mom in Richmond, Virginia. I was her full-time caregiver, trying to get all that organized. About 3 weeks into that, we discovered that her liver was failing and that she needed hospice. On Good Friday, March 29th, I lost my mom.
Wow.
So I had a pretty rough beginning of 2024. Yeah. And then we have a 10-year-old son, so we also wanted to try and insulate him from the divorce. So we were divorcing, but Amy was at the house every day. So we're trying to keep up that facade, which was really, really difficult. Oh, and I still have a team to run, coaching clients and stuff of that nature. Like I said, I had all these plans last year. We was goal, plan, and vision. If a year ago right now, let's say in August, like you tell me all these things would have happened, I would have been like, you're crazy. So working through that and basically reinventing or re-envisioning what I want a new canvas or a new picture to look like. I know that I want to keep my team going, and I'm still growing that group of people that want to be fiduciaries and put people's needs above their others, because people need help with that. I'm looking at growing my portfolio of investment properties so that I have more passive income, because I love, coaching people and helping them, and I don't want to be tied to the outcome financially, right? So I just can help people. Probably one of the biggest things is my son's now 11, and I built things to where as he's going through puberty, I'm there. I take him to school. I'm there with him for soccer and everything. I'm just there and making sure that I'm a solid presence in his life as he goes through this really pivotal period through middle school into high school, to make sure he becomes a great adult, so he's my number one priority. And Amy and I both are working hard to co-parent really well, despite the fact that we're not doing it in the same house. I also had a bucket list item to try stand-up comedy, and I've done that, and I'm going to continue doing that. That's turned out to be a lot of fun. Reconnecting with old friends, and one of the things that I am correcting moving forward was I had made my business and my family my entire world, and everybody, including my ex-wife, said, take care of yourself, have friends outside the marriage, have other interests. And I didn't. And I was told to do it. Part of my journey right now is to figure out self-care. And I don't want to say the selfish, but doing things for me a little bit and figuring out what that looks like, because I've just never done that. And, making sure I build relationships outside of a marriage, of friends and other interests. Figuring all that out right now is still a challenge, because I'm still kind of reeling from the past 6 or 7 months of all the loss that was so unexpected and just unfathomable. And so it's hard for me I'm a go and do person. So it's hard to sit back and just kind of let things be. That's what I'm kind of doing right now to hopefully get to that point. So I want to be careful that I, ask for what I want.
Thinking about the future, I know you're trying to figure out kind of where you are and where you want to go for yourself, but legacy, you've done a lot with regard to the coaching you do, your team. You got your son, you've got a lot, I'm sure you think a bit of it financially, but legacy is a lot more than just the financial aspect.
Yeah.
Do you spend much time thinking about that, what you want to leave behind?
Well, sort of. So not directly, indirectly. So I believe that, whatever we do now, it's like a drop in a pool, it creates ripples.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not going to see all those ripples. Right. But when I was a bowl coach for 6 years, I've got hundreds, and I mean hundreds of letters and or notes of how I've changed people's lives, and not from the sales standpoint, but, as them as humans, that, right? But I've seen people lose weight and get married or get divorced or adopt children when they couldn't have them, and reconnect with estranged people, and just really cool stuff. And, one of my goals is just always leave people better than I found them. And I live by kind of 3 words: that I want to create an impact in this world. I want to do it with integrity that creates abundance, and I try to, that's my filter, right? So that, and where that leaves legacy, I don't know directly. I want it to be impactful. So one of the ways I tangibly do that is, with real estate, I've changed legacies for a lot of people that, didn't own homes, because 80% of wealth in this country is built from real estate.
Yep. And
just by owning a house versus renting, you're 25 times wealthier, right? Because you have a forced savings account and appreciation, blah, blah, blah. So I don't, and one of the reasons I left the piano store business, even though it was the most money I ever made, was there's no legacy to that. I was like, great, when I die, I got a bunch of pretty pianos in people's houses. I just didn't feel good. Whereas several direct legacy things is building up a portfolio of properties for me that I can hand down to my son when I'm gone, not like Social Security or a 401k. If he so chooses, he can hold on to those and keep growing on them, building on them. There'll be passive income and those appreciate, generally speaking, to a point. And then, but the other things are like with my son, just attempting to be a good man and a good model for him to then therefore carry on, or be a good model or generally a good person for the people that I coach or that I'm around, or help other people so they can do that. And so the legacy I'm just trying to live is tangibly, my son will be better, the people that I associate with. I used to say I wanted to create 10 millionaires. And now I just say, you know, what took me 10 years to do, I want people on my team to be able to do it in 3. But in reality, I want people to be able to live their life by design and understand that I do believe that you're no more than 5 years away from whatever you want to be or who you want to be or what you want to do.
Do you record things? And I don't mean necessarily just, electronically, but journals, notes, things like that.
Yeah. Absolutely. I journal. There's this really cool book, Tools of Titans, that Tim Ferriss did. Comment all these things were with hundreds of successful entrepreneurs. And shockingly, they all had a very similar system. Get up early, do your most important work on your own, exercise, meditate or pray, journal, get the thoughts out of your head onto paper. They're just thoughts. You can't control what pops in your head. Just get it out, get it on paper, dump it, get it going, and then focus on what you want to focus on. Journaling is really good, especially when I'm stressed. Meditation, lots of free stuff like that. I'm not a good meditator, but I have ones I listen to that carry you through it, which are helpful sometimes. And then I did this old thing, it was called the I Ching, where you ask questions and drop coins. And the other thing I do is I've got a composition notebook, little 99-cent composition notebook, and every October, November, I do the Jim Rohn thing. I just write down everything I want. All the goals, everything I want, anything I want. And I just put a 1, 3, 5, or 10 by it. Like, do I want that in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, right? And it's so neat to look at that every year to see how much it's changed over the years.
Yeah.
And some things I thought were really important that die away, and then some things are consistent, So just having a record of that has been helpful. But I can't emphasize journaling, getting stuff out of your head onto paper and just throw it away, just as noise, just get it gone, is huge.
I believe I know the answer to this already, but I'm going to ask it anyway. We live in a legalistic society, legal paperwork, wills, all that sort of stuff. I'm taking a guess that you've got all that stuff in place.
And had it all in place. And then when Amy asked me for the divorce, we both went and got all that stuff redone. Like, that was the number one goal and task.
Yeah.
Because in this world, you have to, even if it's a piece of paper that's stamped with a notary, you got to put something on paper somewhere so people know what to do with your stuff.
Yep.
Because if you don't, you are really screwing the people that are going to be left when you're gone.
Yep. Dealing
with my mom and my stepdad's estate, as good as they were at having that stuff, it has been a full-time job shutting down their lives. And I had good paperwork and good documents, and it still wasn't enough. So if you have nothing, the world freezes for 6 to 9 months, but your bills don't, and people can't access funds. They can't act on your behalf. They can't get into things. It's really scary stuff. So like I said, even if you write just on a piece of paper, so-and-so's in charge of everything for me, and have it notarized and have it somewhere, like, you got to have something. The other thing is make sure that somebody outside yourself has to your phone password and your email password and your computer password.
Yep.
Because when Bob passed away, man, we couldn't get into his phone. Like, and no offense, his Face ID, like, he's gone. Like It was really a struggle. As silly as it sounds, like, somebody needs access to that stuff just to function on your behalf. But then again, if they don't have the piece of paper saying they can do it, then they're also breaking the law. I remember when my stepdad died, all he said regarding his funeral was, "I want to be cremated."
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
That's all he said. Left a lot of room for interpretations, right? With what kind of funeral he wanted. That was it. Like, didn't say where he wanted it.
Yeah.
And my mom, on the other hand, had a folder with exactly what she wanted. Yeah. She wanted a Catholic mass. She wanted to break. Then she wanted to party at where she lived. And it was like, oh, thank God. It was so easy to do hers because like she taught me, I knew the music. I knew she wanted a bagpipe person at the funeral, and it was like, sweet. Like, and back to like, it made life easier for me. But even in the end there, it wasn't perfect because all she said was, well, like, I want to be with Bob. Well, all he said was, I want to be cremated. Yeah. Well, now where do we put their ashes, right? Yeah. Do we put them on the mantle? Do we put them somewhere? But as far as the actual funeral and how to say goodbye to her, she laid it out like so that he did nothing, he just cremated. And I can't explain to you the amount of lack of stress I had with her and the amount of stress we had with him guessing at what he wanted. But with her, it was like, oh, thank God, just follow the list, man. I mean, like down to the food and the wine, and like she just really gives a lot of details, and it was incredibly helpful so we could focus more on grieving, right, or connecting with people, and it was interesting. And but anyway, it's have the end in view just a little bit, and then we can always change.
Well, it had been too long. I'm glad we got to connect. We need to do it more regularly going forward.
Look forward to it.
Thank you for your time.
Man, thank you, brother. This is great.
All right.
See ya.
You can't hang on to yourself. You don't have to try not to hang on to yourself. It can't be done, and that is salvation. The most important thing for anyone to realize is that you and every person you see will soon be dead.